before it drive, I could like drive down here and
so it'd be kind of a shuffle around the campus. And once you do the can't touch that. Those will have on we were pretty much told to relax. We're a family. A lot of teachers on campus. It was actually better than
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for trekking out in the snow and sleet to come and listen to us this morning. So I am Liz Tawigo, and this is Bill Griscom, and we are very excited to be here this morning and share with you how we are working to create a culture of innovation within our district. So while we're going through this, just before I let Bill talk about himself, there is the bit.ly link. It's also online on the the session info. We put our link out there. We're going to go through all of the information, and then at the end of the presentation, you'll see a green resources slide, and after that come links and links and links of all kinds of stuff so that you can come back and use that as a reference for things that we talk about.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bill Griscom. I am the Technology Director for the Lampeter-Strasburg School District. Just so you have a perspective on what I do, because every IT director role can be slightly different. I do a lot of the strategic planning with our administration, look at what our educational initiatives are, and try to make sure that the technology is in place to support those initiatives. And of course, budgeting as well. I oversee the IT staff, of course, and then deal with all the fun stuff in IT, like security and backups and disaster recovery. So a lot of tech jargon there in the last one. And then, of course, our signature project right now is our one-to-one initiative. We are one-to-one in grades 3 through 12. 3 and 4 do not take devices home. Grades 5 through 12 take home Chromebooks. And we're looking to expand that even to K1 and 2 next year. So that's sort of my role. I work very closely with Liz, who's our technology coach, and of course our assistant superintendent on a lot of curricular initiatives related to technology.
And I'm Liz Tawigo, so like Bill said, I'm the instructional technology coach for the district. So I deal with all the in-class application of all of the wonderful technology that Bill provides for the district. So my job is pretty wide. I plan and provide professional development, do planning for the year for teachers as we're integrating new technology, come out to PDC and check out the new toys that we might want. I don't really do any kind of like actual troubleshooting. We have a really nice technology department that does that for us. But I do like training and support kinds of things. I also get to do all of our Chrome extension and app approval for the teachers, and we're pretty free with that, so whatever they request, we'll go through. And just so you know, then if you want to flip to the next slide, where we kind of fall in, Because the projects that we're going to talk about, we have some district funding and they go throughout the district, so just to see where we are, Bill's there in yellow. Both of us report to the assistant superintendent, but I'm sort of on this other wing of instructional technology, and then Bill has the technology department, and then our teachers come in under our building principals over here. And Bill has a budget, I control no budget. So when we kicked off, I was requesting money to do some of these things and going like this.
Just a little bit about where we work. Lampeter-Strasburg School District is located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I would say it's not really rural. You might look at our campus and think it's rural, but we're pretty connected to the Lancaster community. We have roughly 3,100 kids. It ebbs and flows a little bit, but it's around that 3,000 mark, just so you can have a comparison. We have 4 schools. If you go to our district, you will go through every school. We don't have any grades that duplicate. And we are all on one campus, which makes budgeting and a lot of things we do a lot easier. Roughly 219 professional staff members, including guidance counselors and the like. And then finally, we have an annual budget of about $51 million. So just for comparison purposes about whether or not what we do might work in your area, this is sort of how LN backs up. So today we're going to go through a discussion of a background and sort of a purpose and what we were trying to accomplish with the projects that Liz is going to dive into in a moment. We have 2 programs that we developed and have been utilizing for the last 3 years to encourage innovation, and we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of that. We'll get into the program setup itself in terms of how teachers applied for our program and how we evaluated what they submitted. And then, of course, what the outcomes were. It's always tricky to measure the results, so we have a lot of just sort of quotes and things where we can hopefully share some of the things our teachers did and how things worked out.
Okay, so how did we get started and why did we start these? So every year I come to P&C, like you all, and I get all these great ideas, and then I go back to school and I think, how am I going to make this happen? And so 3 years ago, we were in the process of going one-to-one, and we had plans to add all of these devices into the district. But what I was struggling with is, so what are we going to do with this? And how are we going to change learning? And I always struggle as the instructional technology coaches. I want everybody to move forward with how they integrate technology into their classrooms and what they're doing. But that's a hard task because not everyone is ready to move at the same time. So you have those people that are ready to go, and in fact, they're ahead of me. And then you have the people that I'm like, come on guys, come on, let's go. So we came here, and actually it was a session that we sat in, and I don't remember anything about the session except the presenter said, we feed our eagles. And that was like my aha moment. I was like, yes, I'm going to focus on some of those eagles. And we're going to start to reward those people who want to do more and want to try more and kind of harness that and help them lead. Because I'm my own department, so there's only one of me. So there's no way for me to get to all of those teachers. But I was like, so what can I do to create pockets and get that momentum going? Because I alone can't do this. So I got Bill and I got our boss, the assistant superintendent, and we sat down and I had kind of thought about what I wanted to do. And so I suggested 2 things. The first thing was to give teachers opportunities to request non-standard issue technology that they want. And it doesn't have to be technology because you'll see some of the things that we bought are not technology. But it kind of flips the paradigm. Instead of telling teachers, here's this cool thing, you have to use it. Because as soon as you tell teachers, you need to use this, they're out. And I'm the worst one. As soon as you tell me I have to do this, I'm like, nope, I was a high school teacher. So trying to kind of make them want to innovate. And also, when a teacher goes out to a conference like this, or we're within IU13, we have a really nice educational technology conference, when they go and see something, to feel empowered to have the opportunity to get that thing and bring it back to LS, instead of the feeling of like, oh, well, we don't have that, I'll never get that at school. So that's the first of our 2 programs that we're going to talk about. That's our innovation program. Then the other part was classroom design. So we have still a lot of classrooms that are seat, desk attached, or the old like flip-top desks in the elementary. And there's something about changing the space to change the learning. But again, if we had told all of our teachers, you're getting these new cool triangle desks, good luck, all they would have done is complain. So again, we flipped the paradigm, or what I was out to do is flip the paradigm, and challenge teachers to change their space and to innovate how they're teaching with that changed space. And so that's what we're going to talk about today with these two things. So the first one is the innovation program. That's our tech items.
So just to reiterate what Liz said, three different reasons why we did this. We wanted to empower teachers. I think it was an aha moment for me as well in realizing that teachers don't control a budget, and so if they want to do something that's different in their classrooms, they have to beg, or they have to do a donors choose. They have to ask their parents to donate money, and it felt sort of ridiculous that they could never do anything above and beyond without going through some sort of crazy elaborate set of plans. So that was the first thing. We wanted to empower the teachers to do something different. We also knew that if they would write these grants and they would ask us for these things, that it would bring new technology and even non-technology into the classrooms, and that their colleagues would see it, and it wouldn't be the tech director or the principal pushing something on them, and it wouldn't also be at this gigantic scale. So we knew it could be simple. And then, of course, the last thing is to encourage all teachers to want to try new technologies. We knew that this would rub off. We knew other teachers might see what they're doing and then start to utilize that same technology in what they're doing.
Yeah, we kind of harness the power of the colleague, right? Because if it comes from one of us, they don't want to do it. But if it comes from the classroom next door or their friend they sit with at lunch, the teachers are much more likely to try these new things. Go ahead.
So what we did was we created a really simple application, just a Google form, and we asked them to complete that application and submit it to us. We had a series of questions, which we'll go over in a second. The application could be completed at any time throughout the year. It didn't matter, it was always open, but so that we would stay sane and so that we would have something to compare others to, we only reviewed it 3 times. So we would review it in the fall, the spring, and the summer. But the application was always there, and as long as Liz and I remember to review them, we do review them 3 times a year and then try to approve the ones that meet the criteria that we've set. So these were the questions. Really, really simple. We didn't want this to be a really laborsome process. So the first thing is, what are your project goals? What are you trying to accomplish with this your application? Provide a detailed description of your project, including all the steps you and your students will take to achieve success. This was a really big one because we had some teachers who would say, well, I'd love a 3D printer, but then when we really looked at what was going on, the teacher was going to do all the 3D printing. So we wanted to make sure that the impact would be for the kids, not just the teacher. How is this project innovative? Going back to the name of this, I mean, innovative is such a goofy word, but we really wanted to make sure that this was something that wasn't standard issue. You shouldn't be asking for Chromebooks. We're already working on Chromebooks. We don't want this to be a classroom supply. We want this to be something that is new and could be considered innovative. And this one was also really important, and we saw this early on. How many students will benefit from this project, a class, a grade, etc.? We had some teachers who would apply for an element or for an item that would only impact a small subset in their room even. So we wanted to make sure that whatever it was going to impact at least that class, ideally could be extended to a grade, and even more ideally, maybe even the district if we could replicate it. So that one was really, really important as well. And then last but not least, item details. So we just simply say, look, here's a spreadsheet, a Google sheet, submit what it is you want to buy, how many you want, give us all the details. And most of the time that worked out pretty well. Every once in a while we might get a device that we would say, well, a good example is an Amazon Echo. We had teachers request a Google Home, and we said, well, okay, we're already doing Echoes in other places. Is there any reason why we couldn't substitute that for an Echo? So most of the teachers, I think, by and large, were really good about that and didn't mind an adequate substitution.
Yeah, and just like switching slides, so it's interesting what's come into this, because I think Bill and I, at least we feel we do a pretty good job of keeping current, but some of the things that have come in through this application process, as we're reading them, we're like, whoa, look at this, I never saw this before. So it's really exciting for teachers to teach us things, and to just be open to say, like, we don't know everything that you need, so please let us know and show us all this amazing stuff that you want to do in your classroom.
So then we realized that we needed some consistent way to evaluate these applications. How are we going to do this? How would we tell a teacher that they were approved or not approved? How would we compare? So we created a rubric, and I think in the first year it was Liz and myself, and I think our assistant superintendent as well, evaluating using this rubric. The rubric has changed, and I think this has even changed as of a few weeks ago.
No, this one we didn't change yet, but we do tweak it regularly, because every time we read it, like, things change a little bit, or we realize we've left something out, and we publish it to the teachers, so we're not getting them on the fly, but you know, we continue to innovate ourselves.
So I'm not going to go through every one of these things. You can see that each one of these is just sort of a change in terms of the number, but it's a 20-point scale, and so we ask things like, what's the level of innovation? Is the vision described highly innovative, or is the vision described in the application minimally innovative? So it's just a scale, but the major topics are level of innovation, impact on student learning, achievability, and achievability is important because even though something might be really awesome, it may not be practical. We had a teacher ask for a $90,000 electronics program, and it was really, really cool, and I would love to do it. It's a little too big for this, so that was not achievable. So even though he would have done well in all the other categories, he didn't do well here. Student impact, you know, how many kids are actually being impacted by this, and is the application clear? Do we understand what their actual vision is? And so this scale is really helpful, and what Liz and I find is that even though I'm a harsher grader than she is, we are extremely consistent, and usually our numbers are off by 1 or 2, but you can see that consistency through the application. So we usually end up with the same results in the end, but we sort of average those scores at the end and make a determination as to who we will fund and who we won't. And this is a link, right?
Maybe not there, but at
Okay.
the end in the resources, there's the link to that.
So here are some of the projects we funded. A lot of these are really awesome. We've done at least 2 3D printers. We did a rolling cart of Sphero robots. We've done the Dash robots. You've probably all seen them, the little blue things with a blinking eye. We've done a VR cart. 3D pens, I think that's what Liz was talking about. We did not know that existed. It's basically...
It was a couple years ago.
Like a 3D printer, but in your hands, and it's like filament coming out, and you can be artistic and show your craftsmanship. So that's a really, really neat one. iPad cart for a variety of other things that are too much to go into right now. Breakout EDU, this is an example of one that was really low tech. I mean, there's barely a tech component to the breakout boxes. And of course, Amazon Echoes. I think our most recent applications include Osmo. We even are looking at Bloxels. We're also looking at an exercise bike table for a classroom where the students need to burn off some energy, and so sort of unique, interesting ideas that again are outside of your typical classroom standard issue.
Yeah, and probably some of you are interested in spending. I think our most expensive item that we bought through this was like $15,000. I don't control any budgets. I'm like, Bill, can we? He's like, yeah, I got it.
I don't think it was even that high.
Maybe
The VR cart was the most expensive, and I can't think of what that cost was offhand, to be honest with you. That was the most expensive one.
So this is 3 years worth of applications, and we just had an application deadline or review date of February 1st, which we sort of forgot about because we were excited about coming out here. But so we keep it going. So, you know, in 3 years, a lot of new things have come in, and so as we get these new things, what we didn't think about in the beginning that we very quickly realized we need to think about is, okay, well, we have this now. What do we do with it? So does it belong to that teacher? Or is it something that can be shared among other teachers? So in the beginning, we sort of had to hash that out. And if our mission was to create a culture of innovation and make that permeate the district, it couldn't be owned by one person. Now, again, it varies depending on what the request is. So, like, the Amazon Echoes, those are dedicated to a classroom. But also, that's not a large expenditure item. So, you know, that balances out. We have one teacher who made an excellent request for a classroom iPad. So that stays with her. But things like our Breakout EDU boxes, our VR cart, the Sphero, the Dash, those things go for district-wide sign-out. Now, we are very lucky because we are all on one campus. So you can walk from high school down to kindergarten, all within, what, a half a mile radius. I get my steps in for the day. So then the other challenge was, okay, so if I'm going to let any teacher sign this out in the district, how do I make sure that they know what they're doing with it? Because one thing that I was really afraid of, and again, I am a teacher, so I'm a little bit of a control freak, but one thing that I was really afraid of is that, you know, we've got this program and we're getting this cool stuff in, but I want it to go out with a little bit of fidelity. I want people to use it well so that it succeeds instead of not taking the time to learn the tool, trying it without proper planning and having it fail and then tanking my program. So what we did is I started, and if you want to flip the slide for me, for each item that goes for district-wide sign-out, I will lead in-person sessions, but I'm the only coach for the whole district, so that is really hard to accommodate more than a couple of those a year, and every teacher's schedule is jammed. So what I started to do is we are a Schoology school, so that's our LMS, and so I have a professional learning course, and I put a PD module for each of the items that go for district-wide sign-out, and they take about an hour, and everyone is different. This is the Breakout EDU one. And so the teachers have to go through at their own pace, at their own time, whenever they want to. No one is ever required to do it. But they go through the PD, and they always have an assignment. So that's my own personal check-in, that they've gone through the steps and that they've done whatever the thing is, and that's where I see, like, okay, yes, you got it. I'm a very easy grader. People get 100, or I say, you know, change this up a little bit. So like for Breakout, basically what this does is it just preps their first breakout. So all of these PD modules are meant to be just getting them ready for the first implementation in their classroom. I want it to be useful. I don't like my time to be wasted, so I try to be very careful in planning these that they are practical and useful for the teachers. And so once they go through and they complete the assignment, then we use a Google Calendar for sign out. So I actually don't add them to the calendar. They can view there's a preview link in all of these so they can look at it, because my teachers are always very concerned about what's available. If I do this, can I get it? I'm like, you can get it, don't worry, you can get it. So once they go through, then I add them to the calendar and then they can sign out the item. I try to make myself available, so if their first use, they want a little bit of support, that's usually very helpful. I will help people at any point of this. And so it's started to kind of take off now. The first year was just 1 or 2, and now it's going, so I have more people asking me for things. So also, since I'm the only instructional technology coach, I have pulled one of Bill's department members, and so she's kind of like de facto helping me to support all of the teachers who are starting to ask for these different things, which is amazing. The management in the calendar is a little bit crazy. If you manage Google Calendars and shared devices, there's always people who just didn't look. So we used to have it as an open calendar where people could just put appointments on, but people were just scheduling over top of each other, and then everyone was cranky when I said, sorry, did you look at it? So we switched it to appointment slots, which the trade-off there is they can't see if they don't click on the view only link, which is a different link, but at least it keeps it so they can't schedule over anyone and they grab their slot. And then since we're on one campus, we do truck the things back and forth up and down the sidewalk. So I think it's going pretty well. We get pretty good feedback, and what's really exciting to start to see is that now the breakout boxes, that was written by a high school teacher and a high school ELA teacher, and so she used those pretty heavily. And then she talked to the middle school teachers, and so then middle school ELA did it, and then you know, another content area heard about it. And just recently, first grade is now doing breakout. And so now that it's caught in first grade, all the first grade teachers want to do it. And so it's really interesting to kind of see how just that first person who was willing to take the chance now has spread this throughout the district. And one other thing that I forgot to mention, the person that writes the request doesn't have to do this. They just get to use the thing whenever. I have asked them if they will write a module for me. I've not had anybody take me up on that yet, but I would love to do that. Sometimes when we have like in-district conference days or training, they'll lead a session, but nobody has written one of these for me yet. Okay. Does anybody have any, so that's like our first chunk. That's our innovation program. Does anybody have any questions about that specifically? Because then we're going to go and talk about classroom design, which I get really excited about, but it's a little bit different spin. Yes?
I like the idea of the online, PD modules, and I'm curious of two things. One, how much effort it takes to create those.
A mountain.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Because I'm obviously kind of pulling resources from the company's website and all those things.
Yeah, I pull things together. IU13 has a really good network of coaches, so sometimes we'll share things with each other, but it is a lot. And I try to keep them to 1 hour. And one thing I forgot to say is if our teachers do 3, they can get Act 48 credit. So that's a little enticement.
And then my second question was, have you received any feedback from teachers on different modules that they felt like it did prepare them to roll it out in their classroom without having like somebody like you with them doing it?
I would say not specifically, but I haven't gotten any bad feedback. Okay. So I'm going to take that as a win. Yes?
When these devices hit the end of their life cycle, are you refreshing them with the normal operating budget, or are you making them reapply to do it again?
Oh.
So we haven't reached that.
Okay.
Well, the breakout boxes have
right.
taken some hits.
But yes, we have a replacement cycle for technology K through 12, and we then put that into the replacement cycle.
Okay.
So the plan would be we would replace those Androids, we would replace the VR. I mean, it all assumes that people are still using them.
Right.
But yes, that is the plan. Yeah, we would not make them reapply.
Yes, sir.
Did you start this out of your general operating budget, or did you target any grants to help support the budget?
We used the technology budget specifically, yep.
Yep.
So what would your decision-making process be if someone proposed an iPad cart versus, I don't know, an Android cart? Like, what would you, because we have...
So we really try to stick within the parameters of what we have in the district. So, like, we're iPads K-2, and then we switch over to Chromebooks. So we put a Chromebook cart as part of this, well, kind of part of this, at our 3 to 5 building. Had they suggested Android there, we probably would have said no, because this is what we already have. And our teachers have been good about going with what fits.
We look to make sure whatever we do, we can sustain and support.
Yeah.
So for us, it's iPads versus Android, but that's how we would evaluate it. And usually, unless someone said, here's a reason why we need an Android card.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at. We have a lot of people who want to use iPads, but they're summarily denied because, well, this is what we have. So my question is always, what is the instructional reason?
Right.
Yeah, and if someone makes a good case for us, I mean, we definitely will listen to it and discuss it. We're not just like hardline no on anything.
Right.
But then sometimes we're like, yeah, but no.
Right. So yeah, we have a programming course at the high school, and the recommendation was Android, so we have an Android tablet card there.
Right.
It's what we do. So.
I'm going to look at this side. Yeah.
Would you be willing to share one of these as like a template?
Like the PD course? Yeah, I can probably, I don't know how I can do that, but yes, if you email me,
so
does it say, if you email me or tweet at me and ask me that, I'll have, yeah, I can sort that out in the back.
How did you determine, especially year one, what your budget was going to be? And do you deny certain requests because of budgetary reasons, these other unique requests?
Well, I was going to say, we do deny, I mean, we just had one that was $90,000. This teacher wanted to do like 6 classrooms. So there is stuff where we're like, oh, no. But I sort of had this idea, and then I looked at Bill, I was like, got any money?
We didn't set a specific number. In fact, I believe we did it mid-year, so it wasn't even something we had budgeted for necessarily. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but we were in a fortunate position where we were cut in some things that we no longer valued, some online content that just we didn't feel was used effectively. So we slashed 30 grand of online content, and we slashed 30 grand on a Citrix agreement we had that we no longer were using because we were one-to-one with Chromebooks. So we had 60,000 out of the gate that we knew we could use. We didn't come anywhere near that on this part of it. The furniture is a whole different animal, but so we didn't target anything specifically, but I think in my mind I was picturing 5 to 7 in that first year for something like this. But again, the VR cart, you know, you have to sort of evaluate and say, well, do I want to do a VR cart or do I want to do a bunch of other smaller things? We really base it on the application, and if it's really compelling, we're not going to tell anybody specifically no, but maybe instead of a VR cart, we would give you 10 goggles. So some of those things sort of ebb and flow throughout the year.
I will say too, if you are a teacher, I didn't actually do a little poll in the beginning. Do I have teachers? Who's a teacher? Building administrator? Instructional coach? Director of technology? Oh, we got the whole gamut in here. So if you're looking at this from a teacher's perspective, I would think that maybe feels a little defeating because you're thinking, where am I going to get the money? But I find in our district, often at the end of the year, the building principals have a little wiggle room in their budgets, and that might be a good spot to say, you know, here's an idea, can I have that because most of the stuff we've done is really not expensive, like $100, $500, and that would be a good spot to kind of get in there.
Grants can be really difficult depending on your demographic. LS doesn't fit a good demographic to try to earn any kind of grants, and unfortunately a lot of the grants that we could earn would be then specific, like Microsoft, or, you know, a company as opposed to a concept.
Let's do 3 more questions, then I'm going to go on.
Part of this is, how do you advertise this out to teachers?
Okay, that's a great question. So I really just email everyone, and I put it, like the first time I did it, I put together a really flashy email that was green because no one reads their email, but at least when they see that, they're like, whoa, what's this? And I advertised it, and I went out to building, what do I want to say? Faculty meetings, faculty meetings to kind of tell people what it was. And then I also, you kind of know who your eagles are. So there's a couple of people that I went to who had talked to me about stuff, and I said, this is where you're going to get that. Fill out this application. And so then once it started, then now it's going. Yep, okay, yes.
How do you manage like things that have online premium subscriptions? So like Breakout has a code you have to
So Breakout we actually got before it went to the platform. So we don't have platform access right now, and no one has given me a compelling reason to buy that, so we don't have it yet. If we go that route, is anyone from Breakout in the room? I fully plan to just sign in and here's the info. But otherwise, I mean, Google Expeditions, that's everybody's own Google account, so we don't have anything. Is this on YouTube? I just said that.
No, you don't. We plan on buying.
We will buy, one account per teacher. Okay, last question.
What kind of feedback are you giving to those teachers whose application might not be accepted?
Oh, that's a great question. So when we deny an application, and this is going right in my eye, when we deny an application, I generally email people because my schedule is crazy and I'm not able to get to them and with people's teaching schedules. So we generally email them and just let them know, thank you for your application and it's not going to be approved at this time. And I always say, if you'd like feedback, please let me know. And it's fascinating to me because some people never ask for that, but we have a couple people that have submitted multiple applications that have been denied, and I'll finally go to them and like, can I please give you some feedback on this? Because you have a good idea, but you're not writing it up well, or when we get, and we're off that slide, but when we go through the rubric, like if it's not all clear what exactly you're trying to do, it's hard for us to approve that. And we're going to talk about the classroom design in a minute. As we continue to improve this, I feel like we should probably give everyone their rubric back so that they can sort of see where they came in. But we are definitely still tweaking this process. Okay, so we're going to transition now, and we're going to talk about the Classroom Design Challenge. So this is a much bigger and more expensive project, and even more than I had any clue when we started out. So the idea of this project is change the space, change the thinking, change the learning. And I really was just thinking when we started off on this, getting away from those desks that are attached to the chair, because you just, you know, it's 21st century, we want flexible learning spaces. When I go into our elementaries, there's kids all over the floor and, you know, pushing those desks around. It's just not working anymore. So this has really developed into kind of a big deal. This has a much larger budget that seems to be expanding every year. But I will say it has been extremely well received in the district. And this year we had 30 applicants, which is the most that we've ever had. The first year we had like 10, and then, you know, it's grown each. So this is only our third year. We just reviewed our third year applications. So it's growing and growing. And what we've also started to see is that the teachers that have not applied for it, when I walk down the hall, now you can start to see little tweaks and changes in other classrooms because they've seen what our challenge winners have gotten and have done in their rooms. So interspersed in here, I just got some different pictures. So this is this year. This is a 4th grade classroom. And this teacher wanted her classroom to feel like your living room, so that we were just reducing the barriers to learning, upping students' comfort level. And what's fascinating about this is, so this teacher was very specific about the kinds of desks she wanted, and when they all got delivered, she looked at me and she's like, "These don't fit. I don't know where to put them." And you know, there's that moment of panic, like when you get a new haircut and you're like, "This is terrible." So they all have that kind of buyer's remorse, right? Come on, ladies. And husbands, you know. But anyway, so like this teacher, you can see, I said, let the kids put this together. Because not only is that, you know, just kind of thinking outside the box, but that's giving the students a voice in your classroom to set up your space. And so the kids are who came up with this. They're like these little S's that go through here, and then they've got a circle one in the middle. So just seeing that change, and also just seeing the teacher give that flip in, I need to make a seating chart and have you in straight rows and know where everybody sits, and you can't sit next to you, and like all that. The kids get more choice. And that has actually really made some significant changes. And you can see this teacher does rotational models, so she has stations. You can see there's like the high ones, and then she's got her kidney table to meet with her. But these are rocking chairs, these are wobble stools, this is a different kind of wobble stool, and then we've got the couch and the cozy corner. And when you walk in, her classroom happens to be right across from my office. When you walk in her room, there's always kids back in that corner, like hanging on the couch, reading a book. I frankly want to go sit there all the time. So it's amazing to see what I had as an idea actually happening and making the change in the building that I was hoping to see. Okay, I'm gonna let Bill talk about the funding because I just crossed my fingers.
Yeah, she comes to me with some pretty horrible numbers. So like I said before, we were really fortunate that we had cut some programs that we were able to take that funding and leverage. So in year one, we wanted to do this as discreetly as possible. We did not want to draw a lot of attention to it. We didn't want this to be something that was going to end up in the newspaper and taxpayers would say, well, what are you doing? What, you're buying new furniture? So we were lucky in year one that we did not have to go ask the board for any money. We just sort of, you know, we discreetly took what we had and we made it work. But moving forward, we knew we were going to need something more fixed in the budget. So building upon the success we had in year one, then we said to the school board, look at what we've done, look at what has changed in the classrooms. We had a promotional video made where we could show off kids actually collaborating in their new workspaces. Teachers were interviewed, and it really made a compelling case. We're also very fortunate we have a really great school board. They really believe in 21st century learning. They are, part of their top 3 goals include instructional technology and just really flipping everything. So we're really fortunate that we have that already going for us. So in that second year, they approved a $35,000 line item just for this. And in our most current year, they also approved it again. So what you might be wondering is, especially if you're a teacher, how are we going to kick off something like this? So what I would encourage you to do is start small. Start with one classroom. You can do one classroom If you're modest with it, you can do it for $5,000. So if you can get some administrator to support you on this, the assistant superintendent, a building principal, get to someone who has a connection to someone who can control a budget. You can at least start small, and then you can promote that. You can put it on Facebook, you can make a video, you can put it on your website, whatever it is you need to do to build that really good will about this project. And the key to it all is to get kids and teachers talking about it. It's one thing if I ask for money, they're very supportive, but to have teachers say this makes a difference in the lives of kids is a really big deal. So I would encourage you, at a minimum, get one room down, and you can really make a big difference.
So just to continue on here, so our first year, obviously we didn't quite know what we were doing. So we put out the application, and I'm going to get to the application questions in a minute. But the first year we asked the teachers to fill out the application, and then we also asked them to fill out an itemized spreadsheet of everything that they wanted. And so we had no idea what to expect. And so the whole wide internet came into us, and the first year then I kind of had the task of saying, okay, well, you want this stool, and can we get it from this person so we could put one order? Because I learned a lot about shipping costs and all those kinds of different things that I hadn't really taken into consideration. We also found, we asked for feedback every year from the teachers that put in an application, like what worked, what didn't. And we found that it was really overwhelming to teachers for us to say, just go for it. What do you want? The sky's the limit. So the second year then, if you want to flip the slide, you can look. This is one of our first year classrooms. This is the high school classroom. So, but the second year then, we put some suggested manufacturers out. And also, the second year when those people applied, they went and looked at the first year classrooms. So what's interesting is, as we just reviewed our third year, we rated on level of innovation. And this year I read a lot of them, and I was like, yeah, we have this. But I kind of have to remind myself, but this is still awesome. This is still not standard issue. Just because I have heard it and seen it, there's only 5 classrooms that have this in my district. So, kind of like keeping that perspective for myself. So we tweaked a little bit the second year. We gave them some suggested manufacturers, and then we realized that that was still a lot of work for us and everyone else. So in the third year, if you want to flip, just flip for me for a second, since I'm talking out of. So in the third year, we took away asking for the spreadsheet because that was the part that the teachers felt really overwhelmed about. It was also the part that I learned in dealing with the furniture sales reps, that what you see as list price, we don't actually pay anyway. And some of the teachers were having a hard time with requesting so much money worth of stuff because they felt like they would never get it and those kinds of things. So we totally changed it a little bit. And so down at the bottom here, this used to say, give us an itemized spreadsheet. So this year we just asked them to create a vision for their classroom. So I know what I had in my head about that. It was really not what some people gave us. So, we'll continue to tweak this, but instead of asking them to give us, I want a Safeco ball chair that's this, okay, you want flexible seating, or you want a wobble stool, because why? That's what I care about. When we review this, so our applications questions, the first 3 stayed the same. Describe your vision, why do you want to change, and how will that change affect learning? And when people ask me for feedback, or even some people ask me before to review their application, which I'm always happy to do, I am a coach, it's all about constant improvement. They'll say, well, did you look at my picture? Well, I did, but first I read those first 3 things. And if those first 3 things didn't make me want to look at your picture, I probably didn't. Because it's all about the why. I think yesterday the keynote was talking about tasks before apps. We need to know our purpose before we get excited about the thing. So we really look for the purpose. And what's fascinating is some of our teachers now, that this has been a thing, have surveyed their students before they put in their application. And so they've included student survey results to say, this is what my students want. Or they've borrowed a couple of the wobble stools from another classroom and let their kids try it. And they said, we like this kind, we didn't like this kind. And so it's really fascinating to see how the teachers have taken this on and how they have included the students in the process, which I think is an amazing paradigm shift in what we're doing as educators. Instead of always being in charge, really helping to include the kids. Okay. So once we get the application in, we have a deadline for that. Now, we used to have it a little bit later in the spring, but after 2 years of this, we were scrambling, and this year we just got stuff in October. So we were scrambling to get these together. So this year we bumped our application back. It was due in the end of January, right after our semester. Our teachers have a day in between semesters to have like a classroom day. So it was right after that. We felt like we gave them a wide application window. This one does not stay open all the time. It's open for like 6 weeks, so we opened it before Thanksgiving and then closed it after the semester so that people had lots of time. We do publicize the questions before that, so if teachers want to be thinking about it at any time, they can kind of be gathering their ideas. So once all the applications come in, and again, it's a Google form. It's nothing fancy. They upload their vision, and then we go through them. So then we use an evaluation rubric. If you want to flip to that. Here's our rubric. We actually just adjusted this a little bit because, so student focus, student impact, impact on student learning, vision for change, and innovation. So student impact, it's actually interesting. The first year, that was a really important line because some people were a little bit nervous and they maybe wanted to just get a couple chairs, but they didn't really want to make a real change in their classroom. And we were really looking for some people who were willing to like just go all in and do something different. But this year, as we were reviewing them, I was like, this is a giveaway line. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets 100% because they all want to change their classrooms. So even just to see how our original important points have changed because the thinking has shifted is a very rewarding part of the process. So we evaluate everybody on this. Again, we both review it, and then we're usually aligned pretty well. And then we go down and we rank them. And since this one only happens once a year, we just do as many classrooms as we have budget for. So that gets a little sticky because obviously I would love to do everyone, but this year we had 30 applications times at least 5,000 a classroom. There's no way that can happen.
But what was surprising was we had building principals who said, oh, I see that my teacher's right on the edge of being funded. I'll throw in an extra 5 to make this happen. So I think we had contributions from 2 buildings for sure, and I think the high school would have also done it if they had had somebody on that level. So they're seeing a difference, and they're actually going to help fund this as well.
Yeah, so we're getting great buy-in from the building level administrators as well as they've seen, like, what, you know, this is worth it. I'm willing to put some money into this. So that's what, if you can just make a start, you're most likely to get people that are going to want to help you out with this. So this year we've actually refined our process even further, and we changed the application a little bit, and we made it a 2-step process. So since we didn't ask the teachers for the items, we asked our furniture sales rep to come out, and she and I met with each of the teachers that made it to round 2. And so then they sat with our sales rep, and they went through the catalogs, and they picked out their items. And so then she will give us all the numbers back, which took a mountain of work off of us. So she's going to give us back the numbers, and that includes all the shipping and all the things that I forgot about. And so that way we can go through and we will know who we're going to actually fund and how much it will really cost. And then our goal is to get everything installed, delivered by the start of school next year. And so far, that is a really, really good change to the project.
So I already talked to you about allocating funds. Just some important notes for those of you who might not be involved with the budgeting process and what it's like to actually do any kind of purchases. Furniture is tough because it's, like Liz said, it's very expensive. In the technology department, we typically deal with what we call state contracts, so we don't typically have to worry about bidding requirements and getting quotes because there's something that will say, yes, this is already an approved dollar amount and you can buy this. Furniture is tricky because it's very, very expensive and it doesn't align to these contracts quite as well. So this is just important for you to know. If you would actually implement a program like this, if you go over $11,100, you are required to get 3 quotes. You don't have to get 3 quotes of the exact same thing because not everyone will sell the exact same thing, but you have to get some sort of like equivalent. So if it's a wobble chair, you may have to get an equivalent to that to get a quote. Now, keep in mind, your LEA may say, well, I need 3 quotes over $1,000. We're fortunate we don't have that. I don't think most do, but I've seen a couple of school districts where anytime you spend $1,000, you have to get 3 quotes. That's insane, it will drive you crazy, but it is what it is. 3 quotes are not terrible. You don't have to do anything formal with them. You just get them, print them, put them in a folder, put them in a digital folder, however you want to do it. You don't have to do anything fancy with that or get it board approved, but that's an important number to know. The second one is an RFP, a request for proposal, which means you're putting it out to bid. That is anything that's over $20,600. This is horrible. You don't want to do this. You want to avoid this at all costs. Avoid this. So, we were creative in our first year. We were leveraging the free quotes, and we were also leveraging state contract, which I'll speak to in a minute. But you can't. You might be thinking, "Oh, I'll just chunk this." You can't do that. You can't say, "Well, Jen's class is this, and that's 3,000, and this is 2,000." No, you can't do that. It's the project. An auditor will see through that, and they'll nail you on it. So, again, try to avoid RFP. So what we did was, we actually leveraged state contract, which means that it has already been bid. Somebody has actually gone through the work and said, that Safe Pill ball chair should be $225, and it went through a bidding process, you've met the requirements, you're good to go. The problem with state contract is, it's not always the best price. So
it kills me every year. I'm like, I found this on Amazon cheaper. Like,
right.
Just gotta go.
So we try to be creative with that a little bit. But like, hey, look, this is significantly cheaper on Amazon. We'll buy this, and we'll stay under those thresholds. But everything else we'll buy on state contract. So depending on what you're doing and the scale of your program, you might be lucky enough to be in that 3 quote category, which we were in the first year. Subsequent years, we've leveraged state contract, Peckham co-stars. It's not complicated. You work with your furniture company and you say, do you honor co-stars pricing? And a lot of them will laugh you out of the place, and other ones will say yes. Co-stars, Peckham, whatever your organization recognizes as a state contract, those are the 2 most common. So we've been fortunate to find a local furniture company that supports us on co-stars. So we pay a little bit more, but we avoid a lot of those headaches. And then last but not least, timeline. When you purchase is also a big deal. A fiscal year for a school district is July 1 to June 30. So if you're thinking, oh, I'll make this purchase in June and I'll use this current fiscal year funding, you won't if the furniture doesn't arrive by July 1. And it won't arrive by July 1 because furniture is a whole different beast, and it takes about 4 to 8 weeks at a minimum. Some things will come in real quickly, and then the other ones, custom fabrics, it'll be forever. Yes. So work with the furniture company. Say to them, hey, listen, I want to buy now. I want to give you a purchase order. Can you promise me it will be delivered? And they'll say, no, we can't. And then you can say, okay, well, I want to use next year's funds. Maybe they can work out a deal where they will make sure you get it July 1. They're creative. They know what they're doing. They know how to receive it. But that's just an important aspect to remember. Know when your funding is going to expire. If a principal comes to you in June and says, hey, I want to buy a bunch of furniture, probably not going to happen. They need to plan for that. So just know that timeline.
Yeah, so that's the part that, like, from my role, because I was a classroom teacher, I'm now an instructional coach, that budgeting, funding, I had no idea. So that's where having Bill in on this project has been critical, because he really understands that. And I mean, it's a joke. I'm like, you got some money? Here's what I got for you. So, I've kind of talked about some of the outcomes from this, but this is such a rewarding project for me personally, and I think Bill too, because it's rare that you see something when you walk down the halls, you can see what you've done in action, and where it's really then kind of starting to permeate the culture around. If you flip the slide, I'm going to keep talking, but this classroom never applied for the challenge, and this classroom used to have straight rows of desks until last year. So this teacher found some old science stools, some old tables from the computer lab, and put this and started to change her space. She's got just like a cheap tan Walmart rug in there. But she started to change her space, and there's a lot of other classrooms like this because they see the value in what we're doing. Or they have a kid that comes from 3rd grade to 4th grade and says, well, but my classroom last year, so it puts a little pressure, not from any administrator, but it puts a little pressure on those teachers to at least go find out what's happening and what was so amazing about last year's classroom, and to kind of at least consider the change. And we don't force anybody. This is, all of these programs are 100% optional to the teachers, but it's really awesome to see how it's grown. And again, a lot of these classrooms, we have increased student voice, where they get to decide, you know, what the configuration of the desks is, what kind of a chair they sit on. I mean, just those kinds of things have been really empowering to the students and very engaging in the classroom environment in general. And it's really kind of just, I'm a totally visual, like I need my space to look nice, but when you walk into some of these new classrooms, you know, we're looking at that bright blue couch or those nice new green chairs. I mean, just the feeling of that space versus your, you know, old blue chair, fixed desk, like the vibe in that space is so different than in a traditional classroom that does really affect learning as well. So here's a couple of, I'm going to let you read these, but this is feedback that we got from the teachers. We put a survey out to our contest winners so that they can give us some things. And they said kind of, you know, the same ideas that I've talked about. So we got about 5 minutes, so I will take as many questions as we can get in that time. And then if we don't get to answer your question, our email addresses are on here, and so are our Twitter handles, so please feel free to reach out. Start back there. Say it loud, now we got the shuffling.
You talked about building administrators helping with the final funding push. Where are your building administrators in your curriculum director in the decision-making process for what you guys do to rubric process? At what point do you involve in, hey, your teachers are doing this, you're doing that? How do you involve them in the process?
So we have, I mean, I would say we have pretty good communication in our district to start with, but usually the building administrators, there's a monthly admin team meeting, and so Bill goes to that, I do not, but he'll tell them, you know, these were the applicants, this is who we're going to approve, and so they know by building. Some of them will come and ask me ahead of time, so that they know. And then like, last year we had teachers that were on the cusp, and so I said, I think we're not going to be able to fund this, and I went to the building principals, like, got any money? And so he kind of put it in there.
But they're always very supportive.
Yes.
I think they've seen what we've done, and there's just a trust level. So they really do say, well, hey, if you recommend it, we're open to doing it.
Yes. Over here.
Mrs. Smith got her classroom redesigned. My kid's in Mrs. Jones's class, and I come to the building principal and say, that's not equitable. I want my kid in Mrs. Smith's class. What's your building manager's responses?
We have not hit that yet.
Lucky.
Yes. You're right, we are. You know, and it's going to depend on the building principal, but hopefully every classroom is going this way.
I think what we would probably say is, you know, we totally agree that it doesn't seem fair. However, next year your student might end up in a classroom that does have this, whereas that student, it's another one that doesn't. And that we're continuing to look at this from a district-wide perspective. This is a district-wide initiative. So we hope that your son or daughter can be included in this moving forward. But this is a program structured to allow teachers to apply, and you know, I think that's sort of the line we would go down, but we have been fortunate.
Well, and we also have a standard in our district of different types of classrooms, because we have some that are rotational model and some that aren't, and some that do this and some that aren't. So like, and we don't really have principals that will cater to parents. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, it's pretty much like you get who you get. Yep.
That's a good question.
Back.
I have 2 questions. First one is, this is the tech group, but this isn't necessarily tech stuff.
Nope.
So when it comes in, are you the ones that are responsible for making sure it all gets in there, gets shipped out to buildings, gets to the classroom? What does that look like?
Yeah, so usually that part falls on me.
Yep.
because I'm
My-
around and Liz
yeah, my
is
job's
not.
10 months.
Yeah, she's 10 months, so I usually facilitate that part. In the beginning, I was even helping assemble furniture. Anything we could do, all hands on deck. Even our assistant superintendent was helping assemble furniture. And I think that also sends a good message at times as well. But with a new company, we pay a little bit of an extra premium to have them actually set it up. They physically deliver it and install it in every classroom. We just make sure they know which rooms they're going to and facilitate those doors being open and that kind of thing.
Follow up to that question, you showed some classrooms where teachers have brought in stuff or begged, borrowed, and stole from different areas. Do you have a policy that prevents teachers from bringing certain things in from their basement that could cause mold issues, those types of things? What does that look like?
Yeah, I don't know what it specifically looks like, but what our principals regularly tell teachers, hey, listen, you can't bring in that carpet. That carpet is not going to meet the standards of this classroom. I mean, I won't lie and tell you that some teachers haven't still slipped some of that in because they're passionate about what they're doing. But in general, we ask them to take those things home. Yeah.
So you mentioned how you evaluate the application process. Have you started to evaluate the implementation? And is it effective? Is there a return on that investment or the value of the assessment? Do you have some sort of tool to say, okay, this is something maybe I want to bring to the larger budget and get into every classroom? Is there anything? Because we have a grant program.
Well, and see, we're getting into every program changes the dynamic because right now this is something teachers are competing for. They want it. As soon as we say everybody's getting these desks, that's going to ruin the growth that we've seen.
Are you evaluating what they do to see if it's effective in any way? Like, so I want these desks. How has that met?
Are the test scores going up?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't formally do it.
Yeah.
To answer your question, we talk to the teachers, we talk to the kids. We actually meet with students from every grade level in our boardroom with our superintendent, our assistant superintendent, and we ask them what does school look like for you, and how are these programs working? And it's remarkable how many of them comment on the furniture, on some of the things they have access to, things that are hands-on. So again, it's all sort of just through
their perception,
through testimony. But we understand that we want kids to want to be at school, and that's a huge challenge. And as they have more choice today than ever.
Yeah. It's 10:30, so we need to let the next presenter get in here. If you have questions, feel free, come grab us. But otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Yeah, it's in the form, so there's like form directions, and there's a link right in there. And I send it out when I promote it, so some of them clearly don't read it, but it's there.
Come on, Karen.